Alright, part 3. That's right, C. Section of Anti-Bullshitman's whatever. I don't know what you call something. This is just like the longest insult video ever written. Longest insult video? Yeah, well, blog. Anyway, sentience creates value. Okay, so, yeah, I don't know. He doesn't like this concept that sensitive things is you can trace all value to some sensitive thing that can be harmed. And that's my argument. And that you can't point to anything that has any value in the universe and say, that's valuable. The only way you could do that is that somehow you have to be able to trace the value back to a sensitive thing having its welfare state changed. Alright, so anyway, he argues that I'm supposed to be using a word called disvalue. Sentience creates disvalue. I'm supposed to somehow do that, and then everybody will understand what I'm saying. I'm supposed to use a word I never heard in my whole fucking life to explain a concept, and then everybody will understand it, because I'll be using the word I never heard in my whole life. I mean, come on. I mean, I did take, algebra, advanced algebra, geometry, trigonometry. I mean, I did take all of those courses, and this word disvalue never showed up in all of that work. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's just kind of silly to sit there and play a game that, that somehow people don't understand that value can be positive or negative. And the nature of negative value is that somehow it's eroding positive, that we sort of understand that concept, and that taking somebody from a negative condition to a positive condition, or to a less negative condition, is a positive advancement. And that certainly has a lot to do with the human condition in terms of having deprivations that need satisfaction. And so he just wants to, it's just a cheap way of making the argument, saying, oh, what, I'm not allowed to use the word value because we have gradients in our condition that can be called value states, states of condition. They have a different value. So, it's just too annoying. It's too annoying. Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. No, I'm not using the word disvalue. It's a silly concept. Things have value, and value can be degraded and destroyed, and that's the condition of the sentient. Its condition can be made horrible, or its condition can be satisfied. There. Anyway. Alright, so then he comes up with something to say somehow there's no such thing as this, the Spock argument came up. Okay, now I don't love the way Spock phrases this, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. Needs is a silly word, right? What's a need and what's a desire and what's a want, and all that categorization is just too painful to parse for some general statement like that. So I guess I would say something like the maximized welfare interest of the many outweigh the maximized welfare interest of the one, or some other kind of qualifying language to make it clear that it does matter what degree of exchange you're making. 10 candy bars for the many for, I don't know, being slowly burned to death for the one. I mean, obviously, that the needs of the many certainly aren't going to outweigh the needs of the one in that circumstance. So, but the logic is basically just saying that here, these individual humans creates, a certain value state, and that their value state is, like, obviously Spock was more valuable as a crew member on the Enterprise than the guy who washes the dishes, or presses the washing the dishes button, or whatever, right? is obviously, so, you know, I mean, obviously you could have 10 dishwashers or Spock on the line, and you could rationally say that, you know, the needs of the enterprise outweigh the needs of these 10 people, kind of a thing. You could make the argument that there's a higher priority here that's going to take precedent, and I've never argued anything else. I've never argued that the math not be anything less than as complete as possible, that you attempt to find every value component connected to an individual's life before you do the math. I mean, I've never stated that you do some kind of simplistic, just count the beans. I'm just saying, generally speaking, when I make a general point about most cases, most circumstances, 99% of them, that's when it doesn't matter. That's when you can just count us all as beings, because we're all basically just feeling things. Yes, some of us are other things, like doctors. You know, that we have different titles, and that can make us more valuable to the world or to a greater community. So, and I've never denied that or argued against that perception or anything. I'm just saying, as feeling things, our capacity to feel is generally equalized. It is generally similar. Huge exceptions. Some people are preposterously sensitive and some people are preposterously insensitive. But again, that's not the argument. The argument's just recognizing their capacity to suffer, however they manifest it, like through whatever process makes them arrive at the conclusion they're in a suffering condition. I mean, all this, like, again, this is just so nitpicky, because you know, when you start getting into all the qualifications and all our less than perfect language words, and have to start doing all this minutia, I think, yeah, it just turns everything into, it just gets so noisy and so convoluted that you're just taking all the value out of the understanding, frankly. It's almost like, you know, quantum mechanics is a theoretical construct, and understanding it as what it does as a mechanism, and then understanding it in its nuance of actually doing the math and then adding all the constants. You know, and you start saying, why is that? What is that for? Oh, that just makes it work, huh? Oh, okay, so you have to put that in just to make it work? Oh, okay. It wouldn't work without that? Oh, okay. But it's yeah, the most reliable math in the universe, as long as you put the 75,000 constants in. Anyway, no, just joking. Partly. Anyway. Alright. So then he comes up with a thought experiment anyway. So this thought experiment is somebody is being tortured. They have a button available to them they can still reach with their little pinky. That'll just blow everything up instantaneously. The torturer, themselves, and the whole world. And is it or is it not selfish to get out of your torture by pressing the button? And it's a really bad example because you're not trading equal things. You're trading two different things, right? You're trading the future lives of people and your immediate torture, your now torture, your real torture, versus some promise of joy and happiness in the future. And obviously, from my perspective, that joy and happiness shit doesn't have any real value because you'll pay way too much for that. So this guy's got basically a win-win button, right? I mean, he saves the world and himself at the same time. So it's kind of hard to call that selfish in the sense that obviously it's a good thing for everybody. So it's not a very good, useful thought experiment to get at the depth of the guy's selfishness. Maybe he was being selfish, but maybe he sincerely understood that, hey, this is a win-win. This is really great. I get to do the greatest the greatest harm prevention in the history of mankind, and at the same time I get out of this torturing crap. So man, is that ever a good deal? No work required. No harm invested whatsoever. I mean, how easy can you make it? So the real thought experiment is he has a button available that will harm 10 other people. So you won't, or just say you won't instantaneously blow up the world, that the world will be blown up in some kind of slow manner where people will have lots of suffering and lots of torturous agony. And then all of a sudden that selfishness is revealed for what it is, right? The real harm of the selfishness will be known. So it just, it's just a bogus thought experiment in the sense that we very rarely are offered solutions to our problems that are solutions to the world's problem. We're very rarely offered a situation where, we get the stuff really cheap and nobody has to get ripped off to make it cheap. You know what I mean? That there's no trade-off. And so you create a thought experiment where there's absolutely no harm created, no price paid, except for some sort of thing you already know I don't put any value on at all, which is zillions of years of human drama. We can do without that. Zillions of years of human drama. That's cleaning up the biggest poop in the universe. I mean, that's like, you can't do better than that. I mean, that's just like finding the biggest pile of dog shit on a sidewalk, and scraping it over to the side. I mean, that's just all win. So I'm just saying that, and he describes this as like, wow, I got this argument beat. You didn't beat anything. Selfishness still fails, generally speaking, all of the time. 99.99% of the time, selfishness will not be the answer. And that's just, I don't think you're going to unravel that, or disprove that, or demonstrate in any way that 99.99% of the time, going the selfish way is going the asshole way. So take that little measure of Randian, shit for brain bullshit someplace else, because I don't think you made any argument at all with your completely unrealistic thought experiment. Alright. Next. Alright, so again, back to this needs and the many's, insulting the Spockian logic. Let's see if we can make anything else out of that. It sort of just goes back to this, the meaning of this word prevention. Maybe I'll title it based on what his title is, but it's like there's only three things here. It's like you can start something, you can stop something, or you can prevent something. And that's a big word, prevent. So, alright, but anyway, maybe we'll get back to the needs and the many thing. I'm just saying, it's just the logic in this idea that we are individual pieces, that we're just pawns. It doesn't matter which pawns. The whole idea is to keep as many pawns on the board and as few off the board as possible, to have a good game, to have a winning strategy. And it's just that logical. The fewest, the little, just doesn't matter. The idea is to reduce the number of headaches. It doesn't matter who's having them, kind of a thing. Anyway, consent came in here, which is a tricky word, right? Is clearly what he's implying as a value in the thought experiment is that none of these 7 billion people who get instantly vaporized gave consent. So he would argue that I'm being a hypocrite if I say consent is important in the act of procreation, but somehow it's not important in the act of destruction or taking. But again, we're back to that risk word. If I believe there was some risk of a true harm, in violating that consent, like there was some realistic, some sort of explainable, rational harm, then consent would matter. So if it was harm that was going to be imposed upon those people instead of the idea of just missing their future donuts, yeah, then it would be possible to say, for me to say, consent might matter. But really, the word consent, I think, really has to be understood in terms of the imposition of a risk to harm. There has to be, for consent to be necessary, there has to be a risk of harm. Okay, you don't need to consent to an activity where there's no way you could be disvalued, where no way you could receive a gift of disvalue. Okay, if the gift is entirely guaranteed to be something that can't offend you, can't be obnoxious to you, has no capacity to harm you, then you don't have to have consent to give it to somebody, because they can just throw it out if they choose. You know what I mean? If it can't degrade their existence, and there's no potential for it to do that, then consent is not required. As soon as you are attempting to take something from somebody that has any real cognitive relevance to an idea of harm, that can actually create a harm, a sentiently experienced harm, that's when consent becomes important. And just depending on how big the harm is, gives the necessity of consent greater importance. So he calls all his thing freelance ethics, and it's his choice. And he would like to write. Freelance implies he would write take every circumstance and analyze it to pieces and never apply a principle. Apparently, he'd analyze every circumstance with no principles, which doesn't make much sense. No, it doesn't make any sense. He'd analyze each circumstance however he felt like on that particular day, apparently by no structure, no book of circumstance analyzation. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Freelance ethics? The freelance is a dumbass word. We're back to free will again or something. This shit doesn't exist. You either have a methodology, a methodology for how you're going to dissect the thing, take it apart. Where you're not going to break it, where you're just going to take it apart, be able to analyze it, weigh it, measure it, and find out what its thing is. What the right answer is. But the right answer is through some sort of logical process, and there can't be freelance in a logical process. Freelance logic? Come on. So I call bullshit on that. So anyway, but yeah, I'm certainly not, I don't see consent. Consent is very important when you're assigning risk. And it's not very important when there is no risk. So that's the importance of consent. Has to be understood to be, it's really only associated with the capacity to do something harm and assign the negative effects of harm. So when you're going to assign that, then consent becomes important. But when you're not assigning it, it doesn't. It's not as important. And it's certainly not universally important. If 10 things have to have their consent violated, it just doesn't matter. If if the argument is, you rape one woman to stop 100 equally bad rapes, and that's the deal you get, and it's just too good a deal, consent of the victim you choose is not necessary because the value is just too certain, and you are preventing other violations of consent, of a greater number of violations of consent, of a higher magnitude of consent. You could make that argument. So consent is not, what's the word to use? A universal good, in the sense that it doesn't always, it's like harm isn't always bad. In that circumstance where harm prevents more harm, harm is a good. So if you can do a little harm now to prevent a huge harm in the future, yes, you can logically understand the value of doing that. And consent is the same way. If you do a small violation of consent today for the benefit of a huge prevention of violation of consent in the future, then it's worth it. Yeah, I think that's understandable. Don't tell me people can't understand that. Anyway. So, but yes, consent really only has value in the circumstance of risk imposition. Alright. Clumsy evaluation. Oh, clumsy. He called me. He says that I make a clumsy evaluation of these subjects. There's just a lot of ragging in this thing. Where he's just taking a lot of cheap shots that I just find. Yeah, they're cheap. They're just such. You're saying, man, you do all this work, you write all this construct, and it's like, you see this really great-looking building, the edifice, and then you snap your finger at it or something, and it all vibrates because it's all made out of like a sheet of cardboard or something. I mean, it just makes it all rather, all edifice, all hype, and the substance. You start scratching at it, and it's a lot mushier and weaker than the huge volume of words would imply. And even the structure of it. I mean, I like that you did dissect it into these sections and dealing with these sections and stuff, but that order isn't given much respect in the actual content. So anyway, we have another subject yet. So he ended it with a whole smash on this stupid, like people would have an obligation to breed if you're anti-natalist. So there's this ludicrous, paradoxical, stupid circumstance where apparently people who are anti-natalist and think, breeding is essentially a rape, are obligated to commit the rape, okay, because their children will be able to rape even more, and then if you have enough children who rape, and then you rape, and they rape, then you can somehow overwhelm the mega rapers. yeah, with your population of rapers. I mean, it's just, at first I don't see any real hope of doing this breeding war thing philosophically. If somebody could prove it to me, they showed me some, supercomputer diagrams that demonstrate the feasibility of victory through reproducing by spending a huge amount of money to create your own army of philosophers. That sounds a lot sillier than just creating like websites and writing books and writing blogs, and seems like to me that would be the much better investment of the money than in Pampers and high schools and colleges and all the expenses, $1 million expense on a kid. I mean, it seems to me you could get, for $1 million, I should be able to get like 10 converts, right? If I spent $100,000 on each convert, I mean, I should be able to get 100. I mean, I should be able to get 10 converts for the money I would spend for one kid, right? Come on. It seems realistic to me. So I don't buy this argument that I have some obligation to breed. And again, if somebody did demonstrate to me with credible evidence that will lead to victory, then I'll say, yeah, do it. Because we're back to the rape argument. Yeah, I commit one rape and 100 women are spared being raped in exactly the same nasty, non-consensual, brutal manner. You can't not take the deal. It's just too fucking good a deal. So yeah, if they can show me that I can save billions and billions and billions of sentient beings pointless and idiotic suffering by having a kid, okay. but we're nowhere close to you having that kind of evidence. And I don't think that kind of evidence could ever be even reasonably manufactured, because I think it is ludicrous. Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think it's ludicrous to think that somehow I'm going to manufacture a child that's somehow going to be better at this than me. Yeah, right. Sure. You know, especially when you look at the world and see how people function. Okay? The successful don't have more very rarely is the seed better than the parent that's already successful at something or good at something. So, yeah, I don't think so. That's all. It's a possibility, but I just don't think so. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. You know, Einstein's kids didn't do any Einsteining stuff. You know, it just doesn't work that way. In Hollywood, it sort of does, but we know that's just because, yeah, it's all a good buddy network, you know, so that's all kind of quite evil. So, anyway, so that's enough, right? I think I've dealt with everything in that section. So, till the next time, and such.